Welcome back to A People's Guide to Publishing, episode 60.
For our 60th episode, we've moved our location.
We've been shunned and corralled to Boxlandia warehouse storage. Just kidding.
You make it sound very dramatic. We decided to move to the warehouse to see if it had better acoustics.
I am Joe Beal, your host and the autistic publisher, founder and CEO of Microcosm, and author of A People's Guide to Publishing, the book.
Which happens to live in this warehouse room.
Yeah, it is the entire storage of them.
I'm Ellie Blue. I'm the editorial and marketing director here at Microcosm, and also occasionally serve as dog furniture.
This week, our reader question is, when I'm just starting out as a publisher, what job duties do I need to fulfill?
Thank you for that question. That's a really good question.
Mm-hmm. It is answered in the book, but we realized we had not yet done an episode about it.
I'm trying to put myself in this person's shoes, and it's not that hard because I've been in this person's shoes.
Much more recently than I have.
Yeah, I would say about in the last 5 to 10 years, I was starting a publishing company. How do I get done the things that I can't do myself, or the things that I'm just not as good at or as efficient at? And how do I know when to stop trying to design my own covers and hire a professional? These are all really good questions. There's not really one singular answer.
And so most, truly independent upstart publishing companies are occasionally 1 + 1, 2 people. What were all of the tasks that you were handling when you began?
So I started small, and I had a slow rollout over years. I started publishing zines, and then I started publishing books, and then I started selling wholesale, and then I rolled out one thing at a time. And I do recommend doing it that way. I know a lot of people are I'm going to start a company, and I'm going to have all of the infrastructure of that company set up from the beginning, but building it organically is financially safer bet, and for me it was, I think, the less stressful bet. I didn't have to borrow money, or I wrote a zine, so I was doing the writing, and then quickly that, with the second issue, that turned into editing other people's writing for the zine. And then I asked a friend to do the layout, and he did it for me for free, which is amazing. Sometimes someone will be yeah, I really want to help you out. Other people helped me out, or they'll be I so much believe in what you're doing, and I know you're not making money, so let's just get you off the ground. And that friend also designed the cover. But I did do basically the creative direction on that. I provided the art, which I did pay a different friend to draw, and I gave my vision for what I wanted it to look like and what I wanted it to convey. Writing, editing, layout, cover design, illustration, marketing. So the first task I did all of that. I did it or instigated it myself, the title development, very important key part of marketing, figuring out what it should be called and how to talk about it, and then actually doing the talking about it. And I started, from my very first publication, I started doing my marketing on Kickstarter and using that platform when it was brand new back in 2010. I didn't really quite realize what a marketing tool it would be. I was just it's going to cost me $300 to print this, and I don't have that much money in my bank account.
So, basic problems.
It was a basic problem, but because of Kickstarter, not only was I able to print it, I was able to find readers for it. And some of those readers literally just found it because they were typing bicycle into Kickstarter. And some of them have become lifelong friends and contributors and future authors. And yeah, so marketing, that was key. I did do quite a bit of talking about what I was doing on social media, not just talking about the books themselves, but sort of building community in that way.
I mean, you did all your sales.
Oh yeah, I did all my sales, and I did all of my fulfillment, and I also did my own accounting, sort of. That was another thing that I outsourced after a short time to you. Thank you. I was definitely doing the basics of keeping track of money going in and money going out, but I would say if you watched our last episode about budgeting, or our recent episode about budgeting, I wasn't doing any of those things, and I did not know what to expect in my future. So that was another area where I wish I asked for help sooner. Sourcing office supplies and printing mailing labels and putting books into envelopes, and I was pitching heavily to publications as well, and that actually did kind of pay off at that time.
Publicity.
What else was I doing? I was warehousing. I I would occasionally have an intern, and the first thing I would always have them do is do inventory. All my inventory fit on one bookshelf at that time.
But your corporate employees, they handled all your like mail order fulfillment.
The thing that people would most push me to do to outsource would be my shipping. Like, people were like, basically, when do you get to stop doing the mail order yourself? And that was really interesting. Like, I think there's this idea we have that that's like maybe a lower class activity or a lower value activity, or like that it takes more time and effort than it does. But honestly, like, it didn't. Anytime anyone ordered in Portland, or if I had a Kickstarter project, I would deliver all the local orders, and that was very time consuming and had a lot of logistics, but it was also really fun. Yeah. Handling my own mail order was like actually the last thing that I gave up. And that really I only stopped doing when I moved over to Microcosm and when we merged the companies. When I sold my company.
It was a hostile corporate acquisitions and merger.
It was pretty friendly. It happened over breakfast. For a while I got into doing my own design and layout, and that was really satisfying, but also really time consuming and not my strongest skill. So that was something that actually makes a lot more sense to give this up. Budgeting made sense to give up. It never made sense to outsource my editing because I'm good at that. It's a skill that I have, and it also helped me keep my brand on track. It never made sense to give up to outsource my marketing, publicity, or title development, again, because those are skills that I have, but also because like it was such a small company, it was like so personal to me, and those were all like personal relationships. It never really made sense to outsource my mail order because honestly, just teaching someone to do that, setting them up with the infrastructure, like whenever we would go on tour for like 4 to 6 weeks, I would have someone else do it, and like, to be honest, like that's when all the mistakes happened. And I also like missed like being able to write little notes and make those connections to people. And also like, you know, buying them a postage scale, getting them all the stuff, training them to do it, and then like the actual fulfillment wasn't that much. It was like maybe 10 to 20 minutes every 2 or 3 days, just because it doesn't take that much effort to put a box in the mail, but you have to be so detail oriented and you have to have so much like information. It's a very high context activity.
Yeah.
You have to be smart to do mail order.
It's very complicated. I was training a new person to do fulfillment this week, and it was kind of shocking how, you know, you'd have to interrupt and say like, oh, if it's priority mail, you can't put it in a padded envelope. You have to put it in an envelope provided by the post office. And, you know, and similarly, like, if it's a wholesale order, you have to include an invoice in the box, or pack it in this way so it doesn't get damaged in transit, and you have to make sure everything is flat. This is where these items are stored, and this is why you can't find this, and yes, we do have this, and, you know, and then imagine somebody doing that without you standing helping them.
Like, it's fun also. Like, doing the mail order fulfillment is like literally the one thing that you do where at the end you're like, I'm done.
And I was successful.
Exactly. And then you get feedback from it, and people are like, I love getting it. Yay, I love the little heart you drew on the package. Everything, this is so cool. And how do I buy one for my friend? It's really sweet. Product photography, you can do it yourself. You can do a professional job. It depends on what you want to convey. Moving boxes off the truck. This is like, if you are not able to do that yourself, you need a friend.
Sometimes it's nice to have a second person.
And like your friends, I've noticed that my friends were always asking me to come over and help. Like, they were like, can I come over and help move boxes? Can I come over and help you do mailings? Like, they didn't want a job. They wanted to like bond over doing this meaningful thing.
Yeah.
And what else?
People just like to feel involved.
Tabling at events. This is something that's really best for you to do yourself because it's all about building relationships, but this is another thing people love to help you do.
So basically, more marketing, all your department.
Marketing. You are the marketing head of your company.
So, you know, 2 other key areas are research. So looking up when similar books are published, looking up how crowded a category is, like what is the neglected part of that niche. And then similarly scheduling, and then budgeting around that scheduling. So you're saying, okay, if we're publishing 10 books in the fall, like we're going to need this amount of money, and are we going to have that amount of money? Are we going to discover that before it's too late? You know.
Also contract negotiation.
Right. Writing the contract, talking the contract over with the author,
hang on to that one.
What is the process of when you need to make changes to that, or when the author requests changes? Like, who has the power to assess the feasibility of that? Who can have that conversation with them? How do you know that you don't execute a contract that is just implausible for you?
Oh, also web development, actually. That was something that I
Right.
did myself for a while, and then a friend of mine sent me an email and was like, I have complaints about your website. I'm really frustrated. These are all of the problems. And I was like, wow, this is awesome feedback. And that was the day that I wrote to a friend of mine who's a web developer and was like, how can I hire you? And I probably paid the most for that. Like, that was my most expensive outsourcing, and it was also, like, the most valuable. Running an e-commerce website that's secure and where people can find your website to begin with and then find the books on your website and then, like, use it to buy wholesale or retail, or, you know, just you want to make it really easy for people to buy your books online. And to do that, what I had been doing was, like, I started with PayPal buy buttons, which was really fine when I had 3 products. Except it's not great if you have really expensive products because they're easy to scam. And then I, like, graduated to kind of this more and more free e-commerce software. And then I very quickly was like, I need to pay someone to do this. And I had a friend who was a talented WordPress developer, and she helped me set up WooCommerce, and I paid her, like, that was the contractor that I paid the most for the longest time, and it was, like, so absolutely worth it because it, like, really enabled my business to become a business.
And it helps in terms of discoverability, which ties right back into marketing, because at the end of the day, when you're starting out a publishing company, the most important thing is for people to find you, especially people that already know about you and are interested in you, and then for them to be able to buy your books, because that is the whole point. You know, at the end of the day, you really want to think about, what skills do I have? Meaning, what do I enjoy? What am I good at? What is something that is more complicated to teach somebody else to do than it is to just do it? And you find that there will definitely be things that it makes more sense to have somebody else do. All those things are very different, but there are all specialized skills. And a lot of young publishers, when they're starting out, as was the case with myself, really think that the best thing to do is just to take the author's development as the final development. And, you know, so if the author comes to you with something and says, this is the title and this is the cover, and I've already got it proofread, so we're all set, we just need to go to print and we need your pay for it. You know, you really want to go back and assess, like, does the book do what the book purports to do? Does it do it successfully? How could it do it more successfully? Etc. And those are the most important parts of publishing, and often the most neglected, especially when you're starting out.
And that's the part you never, ever, ever want to outsource. Like, no matter how high up the chain you go, you are still the person who, like, calls the shots in terms of what you're publishing and what it looks like and what story it's telling to the reader.
And because at the end of the day, you've probably all encountered this, where you've watched a company that you like become sort of dissolved in terms of, you know, they once had strong ideals, and then you watch slowly over years where they become just sort of like a parody of themselves, you know, where they don't quite do what they claimed to do or maybe once did. And, you know, it's sort of just like the light version, you know. So, you know, you want to think about that and how what you're doing comes across, and, you know, what will put off the people that have become really invested in what you do. Good luck.
You've got this.
It's not as difficult as it sounds. It's way more fun than it sounds, more importantly. I am your host, Joe Beal, founder, autistic publisher, and author of A People's Guide to Publishing.
And I'm Ellie Blue, founder of Ellie Blue Publishing, now owned by Microcosm, where I'm the editorial and marketing director, and occasional co-star of this podcast.
Like 55 out of 60 episodes, yes.
It's true.
Till next week. Thanks for joining us once again.
Please send your questions to podcast@microcosmpublishing.com so we can answer them on future episodes.
And please give us 5 stars on iTunes and everywhere else that podcasts are reviewed.
You can find us on the internet at microcosm.pub.
On Twitter at Microcosm.
On Facebook at Microcosm Publishing.
On Instagram at microcosm_pub.
And here in Portland, Oregon on North Williams Avenue.
Thank you so much.
Have a wonderful week.